But I think I can't think of anyone else better than to start this story off. It has to do with Elon Musk and SpaceX. So, Daniel, take it away.
So I'm sure a lot of people listening probably saw the SpaceX Falcon Heavy take off with Elon Musk's personal car, number 4 Tesla made, blown into space with their spacesuit with on the dashboard, a smaller Tesla and a guy in a smaller spacesuit. And that was a really big deal. I think that it really, I quite imagine what it would have been like when the moon landing happened. Maybe not to the extent of the moon landing, but the idea of doing something so visually interesting of putting a car into space. I think that the rocket launch is now... So the rocket launch itself is now, except for the Saturn V, and getting to the moon, it's the strongest rocket that exists, and that's functional in modern times. Mm-hmm. Costs about a fourth of what other, like the Delta Heavy, which would be the competition, carries twice as much, again, for a quarter of the cost. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. They've gotten a lot of contracts that are coming with it. I know Elon was basically saying he was worried that there was a 50-50 chance that the entire thing would just explode on takeoff. That would have been quite a fireball. Yeah. But it didn't. You had basically a 3 Falcon 9s strapped together. I know it's a little more complicated than that, as Elon pointed out in the press conference. But with the they had, I think, 9 engines, 9 of their Merlin engines, not their Raptor engines, but their Merlin engines put together. So that's 27. This thing had an enormous amount of thrust. Usually, again, where the car comes in, they would just put, a block of concrete or something, like gallons of water, something to just verify it can carry the weight. Not this time. So I think that one of the most incredible things that came out of this was... how, like, you remember people saying, like, people would take, the astronauts would take the images of Earth from the moon and how that really changed people's perspective. I think it does something similar that's perfectly adapted to the modern age of social media to have a car floating in space with the Earth in the background.
Daniel, when you mentioned floating car in space, I can't help but think of this classic animated movie, Heavy Metal, where the opening scene is like a spaceship opens up and there's a car flying towards a planet. I don't want to give too much away. Now, if you know what I'm talking about, go ahead and comment in the comments below. But, Heavy Metal was it opened with that scene. But I will tell you one thing. This was the first rocket launch that I ever watched.
Really?
From its entirety. And the thing is, a part of me was worried because you were talking about this perhaps the day before the rocket launch was going to happen, about an explosion happening on the platform. And I didn't want that to happen because I think in this day and age, there's such a disconnect between us as a country and exploring outer space and going forward. Because for a long time, the United States was leading the charge. NASA was... fully funded. They were able to launch, explorations into space around, around the planet, and we even landed a man on the moon. And so the way, from what I got from this was, one, a successful launch, thank goodness, and number two, this is a direct challenge for the human mindset to start exploring again, to get involved in the sciences, and I think for us as a country to ask our government, hey, can you please fund NASA so we can do this? Because, right now, SpaceX is a private company owned by Elon Musk. And I'm pretty sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, Elon Musk has gone on the record as saying that NASA needs to get more funding, correct?
Well, it's not just about the funding. Part of the issue is that every 4 years or 8 years, there's a different president who has different priorities. So you'll have one going, like, let's go to Mars, and then they'll kind of gear up underfunded for 8 years. And another guy will come in, hey, let's go to the moon. So then they retool everything. Mm-hmm. So there's that. When we went to the moon, it was obviously just because we were fighting with the Soviets at the time. Yeah. And it was no, we're going to get there first. No, we're going to get there first kind of an attitude, which, of course, means that we're happy in those cases, as always, to spend an obscene amount of money to just compare ourselves to another country. But then once that stopped happening, the money dried up. And then, of course, you had the explosion with the space shuttle, which very much dampened hopes. And, it's... I wish the government had a much longer-term view of the space program in a way that Elon Musk is allowed to, because he has the funding, he has the idea, he has the imagination, and the ability to get things done, that just in an 8-year turnover you're not going to see with the government. So, but beyond that, NASA's actually been using a lot of their rockets for getting to places. Now, one thing that's very interesting of this is the Falcon Heavy is already obsolete. It's currently not obsolete, but it's obsolete. And let me explain. So the Falcon 9s that have been launched for the long, the people have seen those go up for a long. Again, the Falcon Heavy is just basically 3 Falcon 9s strapped together with alterations. So those are right now. SpaceX is just kind of pumping out the boosters for those, and they still have the reusable capacity. In fact, the Falcon Heavy used those 2 boosters on the sides had already flown in space because now they're able to recapture all these. Of course, you had that beautiful image of those 2 boosters landing back down. And that was amazing.
That was incredible, dude.
So, but beyond that, you have these boosters that are the Falcon 9. They're basically mass producing as many of those as they can, as fast as they can, because all of that is just going to be in stock while they then dedicate everything they have to the BFR.
Right.
The BFR, upon completion, and if they get it done, will be completely reusable, much like a 747 is. So in this case, they're still at a point where it used to be you'd fly the 747 and just crash it and everyone would parachute out, which is a giant waste of money.
Right.
And now Elon's is like, well, we do that, but then we, I don't know, jettison the tail or something like that at the end. I'm trying to think of some cost equivalent. So the BFR would be completely reusable start to finish. And if that's the case, then they get the reusability angles that they're looking at from it. That would, of course, also be using the much more powerful Raptor engine. They can... If you saw that's funny right now, but if they pulled off, it'd be kind of serious. That presentation where they were able to show that they can get you anywhere in the world with a BFR in 30 minutes for less than it takes to fly a 747. Because one thing is the way they get the fuel is it's a methane oxygen base, so you just get that from the water, you get the methane from the air, and you can pull all of that out of the air by using solar panel. So actually, it's a carbon neutral setup, and if it's in space and it dispels the methane in space, it's actually carbon negative to fly a rocket if you do it that way.
So basically, it's green energy.
So yeah, no, it's very funny that these giant, these giant rockets can technically be looked at as carbon negative.
See, that's incredible. Yeah. And the thing is, I think us as a country, people, we need to push forward into, going forward into outer space again. And, when we were talking about this the day before the rocket launch, I said to you, man, I wish I was born at a much later time so perhaps I can enjoy the fact that we're landing in space. And then you said, no, we're here at the right time. We're seeing when it's starting, what needs to be done for us to effectively have colonies or have a deeper space exploration into our solar system and beyond.
It's much like the political change that's happening right now. I would much rather be here when it's happening, because the people that are at the time when choices are made are the ones that have the most power in determining what happens in the long run, how things play out. Whereas if it's already occurred, like right now, if you look at I guess you'd go to the 60s and 70s. If you're a business, that's the best time that there was, because that's when neoliberalism was really coming into play, really at the end, right in the 70s. And that would be the time where you get to define what it means. But whereas right now, it's already more or less been defined and it's following a predetermined path.
Yeah.
So I think there's no better time for space travel. And there's really no better time like the present, even if will be better in the future.
Exactly. And as all of you can tell, we're huge fans of Elon Musk. This is a huge step for mankind, for us to push forward for new scientific frontiers. But this is a story we're definitely going to follow through with. And believe you me, we're going to probably do another coverage of the story sometime later.
You're watching Hard Lens Media.